Hello, everybody. This is Stacie King with This Wobbly Life. After 3 Billboard Adult Contemporary Top 20 singles and 4 critically acclaimed albums with his band The Villains, Dan Call released his highly anticipated debut solo record, Intoxicating, last February. The title track single reached number 39 on the Billboard Adult Top 40 chart and over 150,000 Spotify streams. The momentum continues with Get It On, the ass-shaking second Billboard Adult Top 40 chart single from the Intoxicating EP. Intoxicating is a 5-song pop rock dance celebration reflecting today's contemporary vibe without forgetting all the classical sounds and styles that got us here. A departure from the adult contemporary rock sound of The Villains, Intoxicating finds Dan experimenting and stretching out with different sounds, styles, and atmosphere that results in a unique sound and statement of our times. A blend of well-crafted songs, big hooks, and relatable lyrics that on its surface is tough, sexy, ass-shaking, and undeniable. But dig down a little further on multiple listens and you'll find it's provocative, emotional, visual, and arena-sized rallying cry from the solo Dan himself. Aching to connect, include, and reassure, Intoxicating is a much-needed pop culture breath of fresh air, and truly a work that stands on its own. Ultimately, it's a career-defining musical kick in the ass that will stay with you long after the record has stopped playing. As a round-hill music songwriter, Dan has had the pleasure of working with A-list writers such as Stan Lynch of Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, Don Henley and the Eagles, Peter Stroud, Sheryl Crow and Sarah McLachlan, Richard Feldman of Eric Clapton and Joe Cocker, Billy Chapin of Edwin McCain, Josh Leo of Lynyrd Skynyrd in Alabama, James House of Dwight Yoakam and Martina McBride, and Charlie Midnight, of Katy Perry, James Brown, and Hilary Duff, and many more. His songs have been featured on Lifetime Network, TV Guide Channel, E! NASCAR, and many others. As a bass player and musician, Dan has toured the world with many artists and bands in rock and country over the years. He has also recorded with producers such as Stan Lynch, Brent Mayer, and Butch Walker, just to name a few. Please give a warm welcome to my longtime friend, Dan Call.
Hello. How are you doing today? That was quite a read, you know.
It was. It's a long description, but it's great because it gives everybody a really good idea of who you are, which I love.
Oh, yeah,
good.
Yeah,
you've got
that's
a
awesome.
Varied and long career, so I'm excited to kind of dive in on it.
Okay, cool.
So first off, I want to tell people how you and I know one another.
I think we should.
Tell me where you're from.
Well, I'm from.
Not too much dirt.
Yeah, no. I'm from Atlanta, currently in Decatur, but I'm actually from Virginia. But we met later on.
I didn't know that about you.
Yeah, back in the day.
Funny?
Yeah.
I didn't know that you grew up in Virginia earlier. I know Dan from high school, and
Yes.
I'll just say Dan and I went on many band trips together.
Many.
Yes. So I was on the dance squad back in high school, and Dan was, of course, in the band, and a very good musician who was in multiple. I guess you guys did several different types of band, not just marching band. In high school, correct?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, you were in everything.
Yeah, jazz and all that stuff, and
but
don't sell yourself short. You were a heck of a good dancer in your time.
Thank you. It's very sweet. I call those my Al Bundy moments because I can't really do it anymore. So no. I live back in the day. So that's wonderful for you to mention that.
Oh yeah, man, it was great. We had such a good time back then, though.
Oh my gosh,
yeah.
I remember distinctly us going on trips to to Panama City and the whole group, going and performing and then just being able to hang out after. And it was always such fun. That was the best part of those trips.
Oh, yeah. The performing, it's like, who cares about that? It was about hanging out and everybody, getting together late at night. It was cool. I had a great
Yeah.
time. The
And
salad day.
such different people, because
Yeah.
everybody kind of did their own things during the day. We had a lot that were very studious and,
Yeah.
straight A students, which I was not one of.
I know.
And then you had the others who were just more social butterflies like me.
Yeah.
And then a lot of the really serious musicians that we could just all really get to know each other. And that was the wonderful thing. So I remember those trips well.
Oh, yeah, they were great.
So I know Melvin Hodges was a wonderful person that kind of inspired you in ways years back.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about, when did you kind of hone in on, this is something that I really love and I want to make a career out of? Tell me the story.
I'll try to keep it short and sweet, but it's going to be tough. Well, long story short, when I was in the second, third grade, my dad took me to see Kiss, and
wow.
It scared
Not
the hell.
Everybody's dad would do that.
Oh yeah, and it was awesome, but it was like, it was kind of scary, but it definitely left an impression, and so it always just kind of stuck with me. An uncle gave me a guitar when he passed away, and I started taking lessons and all that. And then we moved down here from Virginia to Atlanta, my family. And then at Stone Mountain High School, started playing in the band there. I mean, I also played football, and so it was a real like mix up of different stuff, and got to know everybody well. And Mr. Hodges, who you were talking about, was our band director. And he did marching band and jazz band and symphonic band. But the great thing about Mr. Hodges was, if you remember, is that he played with Gladys Knight and the Pips for a while. He toured with them on sax.
Yes.
And he just swung. Everything about him swung. It wasn't, marching band wasn't
cool.
He was just a cool guy. And, he really if he knew that you were really focused and wanted to do it, I mean, he would personally work with you. There were days where he would bring me in. It would just be me and him, because I couldn't read any music. I couldn't do anything, but I was playing with, you may remember, Bobby Rogers and Tom Knight and those guys.
Yeah.
And he was like, man, you can play. We just need to get that going. And so he was really instrumental. But it always stuck with me. I mean, I always loved music. It was always a place to go. And, once we started doing our band stuff on the side, I don't know if you remember, but like during lunch periods, our rhythm section in the jazz band, which was me and Bobby and Tom and Matt Walden would sing and stuff. We do like Van Halen songs and Journey songs and all this type of stuff.
That's awesome.
And it
there
was killer.
Always music coming out of there. Yeah.
Always. And he let that happen. I mean, he didn't have to do that. But we were playing these incredibly hard Rush songs. And so when we got back to jazz, he'd be like, okay, there is no excuse that any of you guys should be messing up any of this material. If you can play that, you can play this. So it just kind of, it sparked the fire, and it just kind of kept going. And then into college, and then I had a jazz scholarship there, and but then started doing a lot of gigs and everything. And it just kind of went from there. Different bands, working with people, songwriting, and it just kept going. It was just one of those things that's, I mean, it's not something you have to do it. If the fire burns, you'll do it, whether, no matter what. So it just kind of kept going, and it hasn't all been wine and roses, but it's, we keep moving ahead.
Right. Which is why, that's the very point of why I wanted you to come on. Because I don't know if you've, it's sort of a new project for me. I do podcasts all the time for work, for my day job. But I decided that I wanted to kind of have something that was my own, that was a little different. That I wanted to focus on people like you that have persevered and who have overcome various different things. A lifetime career such as yours does not come easy, especially as a touring musician and someone who has really kind of, I mean, you've fought it, and you've done, a lot in your career. And it's wonderful, because you've mentioned the different genres that you kind of played in, because as you know, as a musician, you learn different styles and different things from each one of them. And so a lot of people kind of go down this path where I'm only going to play this and I'm not going to learn anything else.
Well,
But it
it's
helps
tough.
surround you, I'm sure.
Yeah, you got to. I mean, look, I'm a song guy, and so I don't care what genre it is. If a song hits me and I dig it, I just dig it. That's just the way it is. And so I also at the same time though, I think at some point, in a career in music and art, whatever it is, you have to know that you're probably not going to be the best in the world at what you do. Like there's always somebody better. So what is it that I bring to the table? And let me focus on that, and then and kind of hone in. That doesn't mean narrowing anything. It just means knowing what you do well, and going upon that.
Yeah. So, which do you enjoy most? Do you enjoy performing, or do you enjoy writing? Because I know you do both.
Well, I enjoy it all, but as time has passed, touring and playing can be it's brutal. Unless if you're like the Stones or Elton John, I mean, it's you don't even know where you're at. They just say put you out there and you go. But I've always enjoyed the writing process and recording, and so for me, I mean, if I had to make a choice, it would probably be writing. But there's nothing like getting up there with like your guys and everybody locking in on something, playing live and it really working.
I love that.
It's a tough choice, and but with all the COVID stuff in the past year, everything's had to adjust a little bit. So live isn't quite what it used to be.
Here's what I love is that when all that happened, you just kind of you just went with it, and you were up there on social media doing live streams, and I watched you many a night when all of us, because like some people, were able to be kind of out and about, but because of my sort of health issues, I kind of stayed inside for almost a year, and those were the nights that I really enjoyed getting on and seeing you. And there were various different people that I know in my life that were able to kind of provide entertainment for those of us who were stuck at home. So I do appreciate that.
Well, thanks first off. And it's also funny because right at the beginning of that, I mean, I had been doing the Villains for years. I mean, four records and it had done well. And then the record label came and said, hey man, we know you write for a lot of people. Do you want to do a solo record? And I said, okay, cool. And that's what turned into Intoxicating. Well, when it came time for that record to be released and the single to go to radio, which is a lot of setup. I mean, there's a lot involved. And about the time it went to radio, that's when all this stuff happened. I mean, I had like 15 dates, tour dates set up, and everybody went through it. But this was different because it was like, okay, well, we're going to radio. How is this going to affect us? I mean, you can't go backwards now. And so we put our best foot forward, start live streaming, any radio stick. I did a lot of radio streams, acoustic and stuff like that. And you just move forward the best you can. Everybody was going through it. The field was level, and actually it helped, because it leveled the playing field.
It probably did, because it gave you a broader exposure. Some people that maybe didn't know your music and wasn't planning to go to a tour date would log on and go, oh my gosh, I like this sound. I like what he's doing.
Yeah.
And it was such a departure. If you'll go back just a minute and talk about your time with the Villains. So the Villains I have a lot of friends that were in your band, of course.
Yeah.
And I love all of them, and just all really unique individuals. But what was so cool about the Villains is, in particular for me, it sounds just like what I loved in the 80s, but like an updated version. And it was a little bit Van Halen influence, I've heard, and but not so in your face kind of rock, but stuff that I really loved. A lot of the stuff that you guys did. I know that you wrote a lot of that.
Yes.
And we're on that team. So tell me a little bit about that time.
Well, we had just, when I say we, and the Villains, just so people understand, is a band, and a few of our friends from high school were in that band with me. The genesis of that, though, is we were backing up a country artist.
Right.
Were friends with, and anyway, it was a long story, but we had been doing that for a while, and that kind of came to a close. And right about that time, I was writing with Peter Stroud, who has been Sheryl Crow's band leader for years, and he lives over in Tucker, which is near Atlanta. And we started writing, and when I would go to record the demos, I would use the villains. And the villains consist of Jimmy James Schmidt, who we both know well,
Yes.
Mike Wilkes, who we both know well, and then Michael Magno and Sean McNally, who we've known for years. And I would use those guys for the demos. And after a while, Peter was like, man, this is really starting to sound like a record. And so anyway, I was like, oh, that's interesting. And so it just kind of came together, and that set of demos was our first Villains record. And a label came in, and we put it out, and it did pretty good for nobody knowing who we were.
Yeah.
And it kind of went from there. It was funny because the next record, I was at Peter's house, we were writing, and he said that he had to go out of town the next day. I was like, oh yeah, where are you going? And he was like, I've got to go to LA. I'm doing guitar demos for Don Henley. And because he did a lot of the solo stuff with Henley.
Right.
And I was like, oh, that's cool. Who's producing the record? And he was like, Stan Lynch from the Heartbreakers, the original drummer. And I was like, God, I would love to have a Heartbreaker like produce a Villains record. And he kind of laughed, and because I've never asked Peter for anything at the time.
Right.
And so I left, and I was going down the road, and I was like, you know what? I haven't ever asked him. So I'm just going to say, hey, man, can you put in the good word with Stan? Yeah. And as I'm reaching for the phone rings, and it's Peter. And he's like, hey, man, do you want me to put a good word in? I mean, I can pass the stuff along, because Peter had his hands in the Villains too.
Right there.
And I was like, okay, cool. And then I just didn't think anything else about it. And a couple of weeks later, the phone rang, and it was like, I answered it and just like, hey, is this Dan? Yeah. Hey, this is Lynch. And I thought it was Peter just kidding with me. And so anyway, we got through that. But that was really cool because Stan produced our second record, and that was the first adult contemporary top 20 single was from that record. Is this the
Rainy Day Girl?
Yeah, Rainy Day Girl was the first one. Yeah.
It was really good. I love that one.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it was awesome to do, and to be under the tutelage. I mean, Stan's a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame guy. Once he left the Heartbreakers, I mean, he's been working with Don Henley still to this day, and an excellent songwriter himself. And so it was a cool experience. But then it just kind of went from there, and made another record, another one, and then here we are. And there was some bumps in the road, but what are you going to do? You move ahead.
Yeah. And so, I talk about this a lot, that I work with a lot of young people and try to inspire them to kind of get out of their shell and to kind of embrace whatever the quirks are, and not just put your pretty out, but just kind of put everything out there. And that's kind of the reason why I started this podcast, because, life is not always perfect, but it's how you kind of shift and pivot and deal with it that is the beauty of it all. Yeah. And so, you're not the youngest artist. We can just say this, right?
Look, you kid, I'm not going to fool anybody at this point. Yeah. It's like,
But I love it because it shows just, you've stuck with it. And now I want to talk a little about kind of where you're at now. So share, I mentioned it in the intro, but share what has recently happened over the last, I'd say, year.
Okay. Well, this year, the second single from Intoxicating came out, and we went to radio with that, and it's called Get It On. And that did even better than the first one. So it got, it was an adult top 40 single. And that was a really, really cool thing, because we didn't know, you never know how these things are going to go. And so that was really exciting. And, just did a lot of the live stream stuff, a lot of promo shows and stuff like that. But the writing never stops. And so,
Right.
once that kind of got to the end of its life here, it was like, okay, well, what are we going to do next? And the label was like, are you going to make another record? Or are you going to go with another single from this? And I was like, got a lot of songs. Let's knock a few things out. So we batted a few things around and decided to go with a new single, brand new, nothing off of Intoxicating. So it's being worked on right now, and it's go out with the producers that I work with, and we're going back and forth. But so we're going to look at that in the new year. And it's really, at this time, it's about getting stuff kind of ready for that. But I will say that the Villains have a couple of really strong Christmas tunes, and that were like on Sirius XM on the Christmas channels and all that stuff. And so if anybody's interested, it's a great thing for your holiday playlist. So it's the Villains, Christmas Is Where You Are, and Santa Claus Is Coming Tonight. It's everywhere. Spotify, iTunes.
I'm definitely going to download that. I just downloaded your whole EP on Amazon Music. I was so excited.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I got that one. And there's one in particular. The name is escaping me right now. I have it written somewhere, but it's the slower song on your current LP.
Okay. Let me think here.
It's very kind of deep.
Kind of did.
I have it written down. I'm going to find it right now. It's called, is it Light Up the Night?
Yeah, Light Up the Night. Yeah,
that one's my favorite. So far.
Oh, wow. That's, and there's a possibility.
It's just different.
Yeah.
It's kind of chill. Like I want to drink a glass of wine and sit by the fire and kind of listen to that one.
Yeah, it's definitely what we call sexy. Like,
yes.
It came in. And it's funny because, with this record, this wasn't done the traditional way. It was, you have to evolve in your business. And so, pop dominates, the world now, whether you like it or not. And
right.
So going into Intoxicating, I didn't want to do, it was going to be a solo record, and I didn't want to do, I could have just done another Villains record, but I was like, let's experiment. So I brought in some guys that do a lot of urban hip hop and rap. And the idea for that particular song, they actually had sort of like the groove of it. And they're like, hey, man, check out this groove. And it was just like, I mean, it was just simple.
Yeah.
And I was like, what can we do with this? And it just kind of sprung up, and, everybody that's heard, it's like, that is like one of the most stretched out things you've done. I mean, like that kind of dance stuff, Yeah.
And,
but it was a fun tune. And look, the thing about pop today is that they're just doing the stuff that we loved in the 80s. It's just, it's
updated.
Yeah. And
it's a little faster. It's a little, I don't know. It sounds to me like the electronics.
Yeah.
Like electronica back in the day, just kind of a little upbeat.
Yeah.
It's
a
really
lot more
cool.
Digital and like, in your face. And so we kind of, when we were going to make the record, it was like, I'm thinking like a Duran sort of NXS, I mean, I always love those bands, and I thought that'd be kind of cool. And so that's the approach. And like Light Up the Night's got that Duran vibe, and it's, it's cool. I'm glad you like the tune. I love it. So that may be, that could be the next single. Nothing's written in stone. We just kind of have to see how it goes,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. So, tell us, like, if you had one song out of all the songs you've written, and I know that you have a huge list by now of ones that I have no idea about, because I only know the ones that you've released. Every good artist has their notebook.
Yeah.
But if you have all of the songs that you've written, which would be your favorite?
Oh my God, man, that is a big question. God, my favorite.
And why? Because there's got to be a reason.
Well, I don't know that it's my favorite, but because they're all your kids, right? And the thing about songwriting is the problem that a lot of songwriters run is they think that everything they do is great. And the reality of it is 95% of it is just pure crap. And you have to be able to do that. So once you get close on a song, it becomes your kid, I would have to say right at this particular moment, the title track from Intoxicating, and the reason why it is because it was such a stretch out, and I loved the demo I did, which sounds nothing like what it turned into. But that was the first one that really came in full focus. That was me. You know what I mean? That I felt like this is who I am. And it worked. It was, I love the villains, and the villains are not done. I mean, we didn't break up. We could do another villains record, but
I'm so glad of that, of course.
Yeah, everybody needs to do their thing. And so
everybody has to kind of grow on their own to be better when you come back together.
Yeah. And I think that's important. And we all think that. And so, but Intoxicating was the first thing that was truly Dan Call, and to hear that coming back, off of, Sirius XM and, Pat Monahan's from Train, from his specialty show. He's one of the first guys to play that tune. And
that's awesome.
So I would say that, yeah.
Well, good for you. That's so awesome. So if you had, tell us about, I guess, what do you think that an artist that's just coming out right now, if you had any advice to say, okay, get ready.
Yeah.
This is what it's all about. Because, you've been there. You've done that. Just kind of, I guess, share some of that.
Well, I would say this, that, a lot of people love art and they love painting and writing and doing whatever. But if you're going to do it, you have to understand that the victories are few. Everybody, this is a business of taste. This isn't widgets and stuff like that. And so the reality is, you may have thought you've written the next Stairway to Heaven or whatever it is, but you haven't. And you have to be able to self-critique. You have to be able to be honest about the art that you're doing, because if you're not with yourself, you're never going to survive, the opinions, the thoughts, because everybody's got them. And
they're easy to share, right? When you're not the one doing the creating.
When you're not, it's like if you're putting
it's like
yourself,
online, everybody can be a bully or tell you what they think, and it's just opinions behind a computer. But really, when it's your baby, it's different.
It's different, but you have to also understand that you're putting it out there for that. You know what I mean? And so I would say you need to really know what you want to do. Be focused on it, and let things fall back with it. Because, look, I worked in a lot of kitchens, and I don't know that I could have been a doctor, but I could have been like a normal, had a good solid job and all that stuff. And of course, my parents were like, "You are out of your mind doing this," and I'm like, it's either gonna work or it's not.
You got to follow your dream.
You got to do it. And look, I scrubbed a lot of toilets in this town to make rent and do that stuff, to be able to do this. And, that's the culture now is completely different, especially in the last 15 years when, we were starting out. You went into the clubs, you battled it out in the clubs. You figured out what worked in front of people. Right. And, now it's sort of like one of my cousin's kids is like, I'm going to try out for The Voice. And it's like, have you ever played a live? No, but I sing great. It's that sort of instant thing, because it does happen for one in a million. Right. But you have to look.
What they don't see is all the people behind the scenes that didn't even make it to the point where they get seen.
And so if you can make $1 doing your art, then you're already ahead of the game. And you just got to know. So my advice is be focused. No, look, there's nothing wrong with going, you know what? I love this, but I don't think I can survive on it. And so I'm just going to do it on the side and work my regular job. And if there's nothing wrong with that, knowing it is the key, I think is the key. And keep your head down, keep your ears open, and always surround yourself with people that lift you up, that are more successful than you. That if you can, that's
having
really,
mentors in any industry, no matter what you're doing, is even in mine, it makes a difference, because I learned so much from the people who are doing it a little better, have done it a little earlier, who, inspire me or just make me better, because I feel like, hey, if they're doing that, then I need to try that. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'll figure it out.
Yeah. And you look, and there's nothing wrong with going, hey, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm here to learn.
Yeah.
And half the times, and look, I'm dealing, you can imagine we're dealing with people that everybody thinks they're John Lennon. It's just like, there's a lot of egos. There's a lot of I'm right, you're wrong, and all this stuff. And I think if you go in, it's amazingly disarming when you say, hey, I'm here to learn. Yeah. I'm here to listen. The smartest guy in the room is usually the one being this guy or girl in the room is the one that's listening and not speaking. So that's just my thoughts.
Yeah. Love that.
Yeah.
So, what about video? How do you, because you had such a unique look, and and people will see the album cover and all that kind of stuff when we release it. But do you have? I know you have your hat close by, and I loved the glasses and the whole thing. So tell me, how did all that come about? Did you just have somebody kind of help you with that, or?
No, you know what? You're going to love this. That with this, I'm an avid scuba diver. I mean, a master scuba diver. And so I love it. I've done like 700 dives, and a couple of years ago, I was on a dive boat, and somebody was wearing these glasses. I'm like, those are so unusual, And for anybody listening right now, the second you see the pictures, you're going to understand what I'm talking about. But instead of having just two lenses in the front, there's two in the front and then two on the sides of your head, right? I don't have any near me, but regardless. And I asked the person, I'm like, what is that? Because you could see like this blue fluid kind of going back and forth and all that. And there were equilibrium glasses. They didn't have a lens. They were for seasickness. They were made in like Sweden or something. And it was supposedly would equalize you out, the liquid in them. And I was like, and I didn't care about that. I was like, that looks cool. And so I went online and I looked at them and got a couple of pairs and just said, like, this is different than, I haven't seen anything like this. And so I just kind of started experimenting around and putting like the little bedazzled stuff on there and all this stuff. And once I got a pair done, it was like, and put them on, it was like, turning into Alice Cooper or turning into the next, it worked.
They're black and they have like little, either,
jewels.
Is it silver or jewels? Yeah. On them. So they kind of stand out and they sparkle, but it's cool because it's four lenses.
Yeah. And it's cool. So like everybody's like, oh, wow. And it just kind of worked. And so I just went with it. With the villains, we were, we wanted to be like, the Eagles or the Who or, and that was that vibe. And so, but contemporized. But with this, I was like, I want to make a visual statement. And
it's very much pop. It's very different.
Oh, yeah.
It's very eclectic kind of look.
And that's my dad was like, oh, yeah, wow, you look like a chubby Elton John. I'm like, perfect. It's like, that's what I'm going for.
leave it to the parents to always be the one to bring it down.
Oh, God. Now take out the trash. So it was one of those things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So of all the musicians or artists that you've worked with, who would you say is the one that you would most like to collaborate with?
You mean moving forward, doing it again?
Yes. If you had anyone moving forward that you could say, gosh, I really want to work with that person. What's your dream collaboration?
Oh my God. Well, let's see. I would have to say if I could make a record with Jeff Lynne from Electric Light Orchestra, who when the Beatles did their anthology and they were doing 2 new songs, who did they bring in as a producer? Jeff Lynne. I would say his records. I love Electric Light Orchestra, and he's just brilliant. And a lot of the harmonies and it's kind of almost a joke going in, because a lot of guys and girls are around my age going into recording, will always speak in Jeff Lynne terms, like, well, what would Lynne have done with this acoustic guitar? And so it would be pretty rad to go in and make a record with him. That would be my.
So we're going to speak out to the world, Jeff Lynne.
Yeah,
it's going to happen. One day it's going to happen. Yes.
Yeah.
And when it does, we'll say it all started here.
Yeah. It all started. Look, I'm a couple of steps away, because working with Stan, a couple of those Petty records, Jeff Lynne produced them. And so, I'll have to call him a favor at some point.
Another introduction is in order here.
Yeah. Exactly.
So what can you do for him? That's what we're like 1 or 2 steps ahead of what he can do for you. Let's figure out what can we do for him so he'll want to help us. Yeah.
Bribe, whatever he needs. Yeah.
So, and what about your personal life? I'm going to get a little in your face here. So share.
I'm married and no kids, but of course we've got our beautiful fur baby.
Yes.
A little corgi named Mabel. We live in Decatur, which is a suburb of Atlanta, for anybody that doesn't know.
It's an awesome little town.
It's a great little place. And most of the time, but my wife is from New York. And so we kind of go back and forth between here and the city, because that's where she's from. And so, I mean, we're here most of the time, but we go back and forth. Let's see.
And where did you meet?
We met. I was going to see a friend's band down in an area of town called Virginia Highlands at a place called the Dark Horse Tavern. And
great place.
Great. In the venue, the music venue at the time was fantastic. And went to see a band, and somebody like the bartender started putting shots up on the bar, and we had so many, and there was this girl standing there with her back, and was like, "Hey, would you like a?" And she turned around and it's like, "Oh, hey," and it just kind of started going from there, and now
awesome.
10, 12 years later, here we sit. But so yeah, I'm here in Decatur. Love it. If for the people that haven't been here, it's a very funky.
There's so many great restaurants.
Oh my God.
And just like, if you're a nightlife kind of person, and you're, my niece lives there, and she's in the movie industry. She works behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And so she films a lot and does a lot of set decoration for all the kind of movie sets around there. Yeah. And it's a really awesome place. Our friend Camille from high school still lives in Decatur and eats out there a lot. So I love the city. I live in the country now, but I really love the city. So when I can get to the city, it's always fun.
Oh yeah, no, we have. I would invite anyone that it's very family friendly, but it's still artsy and funky. And if you just kind of let your guard down, and it's a great place.
There's always something to do there, right? I mean, there's not like a weekend that there's nothing going on.
If there's a wine festival, a book festival, it's crazy. It's a very art centric little town.
Yeah, perfect for what you do and creating.
Yeah, exactly. Because everybody is, believe me, everyone is creating something. There's so much art just everywhere you look. It's cool.
Well, and what's so neat about that is it's inspirational. Wherever you're looking, there's something that you're going, oh, that's really cool. Or, it makes you think of things. And when you start thinking, that's when you start creating, right? Yeah.
And you can't, and like with, I mean, I can't speak for everybody, but when I did a lot of the Nashville stuff, songwriting, that at the time, it was very factory-ish. Like you'd go into a room with another writer and you guys would sit there and stare at each other and hopefully come up with something. But I'm more of a, pulling ideas out of the sky. You know what I mean? And you never know when that's going to happen. So being in this environment where, there's just so much to think about and so much to do. And it really, really, really helps me personally. And New York, I mean, come on. I mean, I'm not an LA guy. I'm not a Nashville guy, but New York's always felt right to me. And
I've been like 6 or 7 times, and I would go all the time if I could. A lot of people don't know this about me, but I say to my husband all the time, Sam, who you know,
mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
I say that, if I had seen New York City
mm-hmm.
as a young girl,
mm-hmm.
I probably would have moved there immediately upon graduating. I mean, it was just the whole vibe of it.
Yeah,
Walking around the buildings, seeing people everywhere, and just the eclectic kind of, you're on one street and you're in Little Italy, and then you walk 2 blocks over and you're now in Chinatown, and it's just awesome.
It's incredible. That's, it's funny that you say that, because, being from Southwest Virginia, then coming down here, I remember, everything that I knew about New York was from rock magazines, like early Kiss and the Ramones and all that stuff. But then I went to play my first gig there a long time ago. And I remember coming in on the train and coming out at Penn Station, which is right near Madison Square Garden. And I came walking up the stairs, and it was just like this, and something just felt right about it. I mean, I still tell this story that my wife is so sick of hearing, because she's a New Yorker. And, and I was just like, I feel like I'm going to be a part of this at some point. And it always held a fascination. And lo and behold, we have an apartment in the city, in Gramercy, and, my publishing deal, the company that I'm with, their original location started in New York, and it was, 2 trips on the 6 train, 2 stops from where I lived there. And it just all came together. And so, if you're ever going to go, if you and Sam are ever going to go to the city, make sure you hook up with me, because I'm like the Sherpa.
I would love that. We should go together.
Yeah.
I want to see it through your eyes, because it's so, every time that I've gone, I've planned like this elaborate, I'm going to go. And I literally do not stop. I drag him from place to place to place. We go to obscure places. Like I go to the meatpacking district, to little, we went to a salsa bar one time, and I danced for hours at this salsa bar that was just amazing. And I had the best mojitos I think I've ever had when I went there. And I try to try a lot of different restaurants. And so I really try to live like a local.
Yeah, you definitely, look, the only time I ever go through Times Square is if I'm going to a show or something. And then it's like, let's get out of here fast.
Well, it's kind of central. So it's nice. Like if you're staying there, it might be nice because you can kind of jump wherever you're going to go. But
I would advise anybody.
It's the best place ever.
I've been to many cities around the world, and it's the greatest city on the face of the earth, in my opinion.
Well, I'm gonna keep that in mind. So I'm gonna have to call you, and we'll
please.
That would be fun.
It would be. It'd be awesome. Oh,
so
man.
Is there anyone that you feel that you owe your success to? If you could, go back in your life and say this person really made an impact, who would it be?
Well, that's a big group of people, but just off the top of my head, I mean, obviously my parents, my mom and dad, because they were supportive, but they were tough. It's like, you're going to go out there and do this, you're going to have to do it. But the support was always there. And our mutual friend, Melvin J. Hodges, our band director at Stone Mountain High School. He was so cool and so open, about, he loved it so much, and he really, really tried to bring out the best in you, and helped me to love it even more. So I would have to say, there's always influences, but those are the people that really, when it got down to the nitty gritty, they were there going, move ahead. And there's been many others that was just,
Right.
impressionable at a young age.
Yeah.
So,
And I just love that they really gave it their all. I mean, when I
oh
look
yeah,
back at Melvin, even, I wasn't in band and I had no talent in terms of musical talent, but he was always so sweet and so helpful and just the most positive person that you would ever meet. And if
oh
you
yeah,
ever asked him a question, he would smile and,
yeah,
really made you feel like you were important,
yeah,
which is
yeah.
a big thing when you're a
And
kid.
he didn't mince words. I mean, he was the
No,
best of both
he
worlds.
was direct.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
good.
when it came down to the work, it was like you're gonna respect the work or you're not doing it, and
Yeah.
and that made a big impression on me. And so
Yeah.
I would say that there's many, but that's the main one.
I love that.
Yeah.
So, are there any upcoming projects that you're excited about?
Well, the new single that I mentioned before,
Yep.
I am going to be doing a. You're going to love this. A little Christmas live stream show. It's the
Oh, yay.
it's the Extravaganza Christmas Bonanza, and
Oh, my goodness.
yeah, it's going to be
How
awesome.
perfect is that?
Yeah. And shooting for about the second week of December. The Extravaganza. Yeah. It's a joke with my wife, but
Awesome.
it's going to be cool. What we're going to do, I'm going to do the couple of villains Christmas tunes, and then a plethora
Awesome.
of other stuff. So that should be about the second week of December, and I'll start.
Yeah, send me the
posting
link
about
and
it.
I'll make sure to put it out there for sure.
Absolutely, it'll be fun.
Oh yeah.
So looking at that, and then like I said, just getting ready for the next single and whatever else comes along. That's my focus right now, and having a good.
I just think that's the coolest thing ever to have your song on the radio, and not only just on the radio, in the top 40 Billboard charts. I mean, it's just amazing to me, and I'm so proud of you.
Oh, thank you. Look, there's no, and I couldn't do it alone. I mean, I'll tell you, there's no way. I have the team that I work with. I owe them everything. They trust me. I trust them, and that means, and I'm talking about like the people that go to radio and promote it, the label, PR. It's a group thing, and I trust them, and they trust me, and that we just kind of move forward. So it's been good, and hopefully we do even better with the next record, and just keep moving forward.
Awesome.
Let's create more art.
Yeah, that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
So any last words, anything that you want to share with the audience before you go?
Let me think here. Well, I hope that every single one of you will continue to follow Stacie's moving forward here with the podcast. Make sure you continue to watch her. And you're welcome. Anybody's welcome to visit me at dancallmusic.com. There's links to all the socials. Come and talk to me. I'm a very approachable guy. And I hope to see you
for the oh my gosh, isn't that sad? Short-term memory loss. The Christmas extravaganza. There it is.
I mess it up. Yeah. I'll send you the link and you can share it with everybody. Yeah.
That we'll share soon.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
Thank you so much for
visiting
me today, Dan. It's been so nice catching up with you. I've wanted to do this call forever, and I finally just said, okay, we're going to do it on air so that everybody else can kind of hear the conversation. And I'm sure that all of our friends from around Atlanta and Stone Mountain would love to kind of catch up with you.
Yes.
So thank you so much. And for everyone out there listening, thank you for following This Wobbly Life, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you.